Hello, welcome to the Cricket Nerds. We're talking about Test 2, Day 1, India versus England. Big things are happening. First test was amazing. Second test is set up to be amazing. Oh, that was all out of one breath. I'm a bit tired. I'm also tired. I'm also tired because I've been waking up at 4 a.m. again. That bit I haven't missed, but I have missed watching the test cricket, even though it was a few days between test matches. Story at the end of the first day is India have put on 336 for 6. JAISWAL is not out on 179 of 257, and he pretty much stood alone. Shubman Gill got 34, Rajat Patidar put on 32, and then Ravi Ashwin is not out overnight on 5 off 10. So, Benj, first question. And I don't want any, I don't want a splintery bottom. I don't want you sitting on the fence. I need to know, who is ahead after day one, in your opinion?
I knew you were going to ask me this question because I'm firmly sitting on the fence with this one. It is very hard to say. I would say out of the two teams, India go into close of play probably feeling slightly better. They've got a set batter, not out on a massive score of 179. If it wasn't for JAISWAL batting as well as he did, that would be completely different, right? The rest of the team just haven't quite been able to keep up with him in the scoring, haven't looked as settled at the crease, and really haven't played as aggressively and have really opened up for as many shots. I think if England had taken maybe one more wicket, they'd probably go in saying it was their day. But being 6 down rather than 7 down, I think 6 down, it's just a very mental thing, isn't it? That 6 down seems, they've still got Ashwin in who, has got test centuries. They're not into the tail enders as yet. So 6, I think India have just got their noses in front. Having said that, I think that it's been a really interesting day of test cricket. I think that some of the tactics from England have definitely been puzzling me. I have to say a massive shout out to Shoaib Bashir, who on his test debut has managed to take 2 big wickets. His first test wicket being Rohit Sharma. So, I mean, that was big this morning.
Yeah, and it was a really sharp catch at leg slip that got him out. I'd say of all of the Indian batsmen that have gone out today, just looking down that scorecard, only one of them was really like a good wicket. Maybe 2 actually. I'd say Shubman Gill going out to Anderson. He was playing a little bit away from his body, but Jimmy Anderson, it has to be said, bowled really well. And then the only other like really good wicket I thought was Tom Hartley that got out Shreyas Iyer, the under edge that Ben Folkes caught, because that was an absolute worldie from Folkes. That was so difficult to catch. And it kept so low that, Iyer nicked off, and that was unfortunate to get caught off an under edge. That could have very easily gone through his legs and hit the helmet for 5 penalty runs.
Yeah.
But I think while there were some okay wickets like that, there were some soft dismissals as well. Like Rohit Sharma playing round the corner when he knew there was a leg slip there. Axar Patel just slapping it straight to point. It was soft. And KS Barrett did pretty much the exact same thing. Just bowler and catcher were reversed. So
what about the Patidar? I think he got a bit unlucky with the amount of top
I've got to
spin
say, I was quite surprised that was the ball that got him out, because Rahan Ahmed, I thought, bowled really well. I thought he bowled some really, really good deliveries. And Patidar seemed like to handle them quite well. And then the top spin, it did bounce quite a lot. So in fairness to Patidar and to Rahan Ahmed and all involved, it did bounce quite a bit. He got quite a lot of bounce. So it did take him by surprise, but then it just kind of bounced off his leg and trickled onto the stumps. And it's an unfortunate way to go out, but at the same time, he was done.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question about Rahan Ahmed actually, because we were very puzzled. Like, we didn't see him at all in the first 2 sessions. and he bowled his first over in the 59th over. What did you sort of think about that tactically with, seeing a lot more of Joe Root as being sort of, I mean, didn't Joe Root open the bowling with Anderson? And he bowled, a pretty long spell in tandem with Bashir. Rahan Ahmed didn't really come in until much later in the piece and then bowled really well. Do you think England would have benefited from seeing him earlier, or what was going through Ben Stokes' mind? A lot of questions here, so you're gonna have to break this one down to hold him back for so long.
It's a really interesting one because you're absolutely right. Like Joe Root was opening the bowling, he was far more of a frontline spinner, and I didn't think he bowled that well. I thought he dropped way too much short, and the odd full toss. He was nowhere near with as controlled with his lengths as he was in Hyderabad. Rahan Ahmed coming in so late, I just thought it was quite interesting and puzzling just because, I don't know, from my perspective, if I was captain, I would want to have a look at the different type of spinner because, none of them are leg spinners. We knew kind of what finger spin was doing at that stage, but we didn't know what leg spin would do off that surface, really. And it turned out that he actually had quite a lot of control and he did well. So, I mean, he ended up bowling 16 overs in the end. It wasn't, completely out of proportion or anything like that, but it was a little bit puzzling. And I'm sure there was method to it. I'm sure that Stokes was just thinking he had a plan specifically in his head for the type of bowlers that he wanted. And, Rahan Ahmed is a slight point of difference there. So he might not have fed into that plan at that point, but he ended up doing quite well. He got rid of Patidar and Bharat, who are both capable batsmen. So they ended up very, very well. Let's talk about JAISWAL because
Yeah,
he is obviously the main talking point, the headline. He was absolutely outstanding, wasn't he?
100%. Like, he looked a bit like he was batting on a different wicket to a lot of his colleagues. I think Shreyas Iyer looked a bit nervy when he was at the crease, and again, playing that under edge finally to folks is a really unfortunate way to go. I think Patidar stayed in for a long time, and I think he played a good knock for his debut. But yeah, Jaiswal just looked like he was on a different track. Like, I mean, he hit 5 sixes and 17 fours. It was just outrageous, some of the shots that he was playing. Of course, he's there as the set batter, so it's always a little bit easier to do that. But just the way that he plays these shots, like there was a couple of balls that were just dropped a little bit short by Tom Hartley, and he just smashes it through the leg side for 4 runs. And some of the sixes that he hit today would just come down the track, bash. He looked like he was in T20 mode rather than in Test match mode. He looked like he was on a completely different game to the rest of his colleagues.
I think it's having that ability to instantly switch into T20 mode as soon as there's a bad ball, because I think a lot of players struggle to do that. You get a full toss when your mindset is just, play it straight and stay in, don't take risks. Sometimes they'll panic, or they'll usually just try and play it along the ground for a 4. But Jaiswal is so fast to react. He's seeing the ball so big right now that he will dispatch them. But one thing I noticed was how late he was playing the ball, and that's always a sign that somebody is seeing it really well. Some of the cuts he was doing to the spinners, if they dropped just a little bit wide, he was playing it almost like behind him. It was so late, and it's just you see the best players do it. I can remember like AB de Villiers would always play the ball really late, and he'd always try and practice that.
Yeah.
And Jaiswal, he just looked the absolute real deal. I think,
and he is. I think he is, and I think one thing again that stood out to me was he was playing very much in the traditional Indian way of how you play spin. Like, it was a very straight bat. It wasn't, every so often he'd come in with like a slog sweep to play a big shot, but the difference between his, if we look at the 2 big innings in this series, we've got Pope in the first and we've got Jaiswal in this one. Pope's playing a lot of sweeps to the Indian batters. He's not there sweeping at all because he doesn't need to. He's confident. He's more confident playing with a straight bat. And I think that's potentially one bit of worry for England. I mean, I know there's the old cliche that we don't judge a pitch until both teams have batted on it. So we still have to see how England are going to do in their first innings. But all the noise out of the India camp is that Ashwin is playing with his length so that it's not as easy for him to be swept. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how the England batters react to tactical changes like that from the Indian team. Are they going to try and play a bit more like JAISWAL and play with that straighter bat, or are they going to stick to their guns with the sweeping? And we could see England bowled out for 220, and India have a massive lead going into the third innings,
Well,
or even the final day again.
quite possibly. I think the main reason that the sweeping worked so well was that Ashwin and Jadeja have such an incredible grasp of length. Like
Yeah,
they have such great control over where they're landing the ball that the sweep is the only kind of surefire way of getting that perfect length ball from the spinner. So
yeah,
it can be a good ball, but a sweep can still attack it, and that will then drive them off their length. So if Ashwin is already thinking, "Oh, I'm not going to bowl that length," it means that if you're just playing it with a straight bat, it's likely to be either too short or too full. That's my first reaction to it, but it'd be really interesting to see. I think as far as how the fans should feel with regards to, I know that we said at the start, India are potentially the slightly happier side, but it is very finely poised right now. I think Indian fans have a right to feel a little bit disappointed because other than JAISWAL, nobody stuck around. And there were plenty of starts there, but nobody was able to apply themselves to the degree that JAISWAL did. And JAISWAL showed that the pitch didn't have too many demons. And again, we can't judge it until both teams are batted. But from the data that we have so far, it looked like it was a slow pitch, a relatively flat pitch that was spinning a little bit, and JAISWAL was able to capitalize on every single bad delivery. And India could feasibly have been on 400, 500 at the end of the day if somebody else had pulled their finger out in the same way that he had. There could have been, a 200-run partnership quite easily with JAISWAL in the form that he's in. So I think, India fans, there is an excuse to feel a little bit, hard done by or miffed, just because there were some really soft dismissals in there and they didn't capitalize on the incredibly favorable conditions that they were in. Let's talk a quick bit about Jimmy Anderson, because he was one of the changes. We saw Jimmy Anderson come in for Mark Wood and then Shoaib Bashir come in for the injured Jack Leach. We kind of expected Wood to get rotated out every now and then because, he's very, very injury prone. How did you think Jimmy Anderson looked?
I think he looked really good. Like he has a phenomenal record overseas. I think people have this thing in his head that he's a bit of a Chris Wokes, that he relies on swing, and that he's good at home, but not overseas. But I think in the last 10 years in his career, he has been a phenomenal bowler on tours, especially in the subcontinent. He is a freak of nature, that man. The fact that he is still playing, he is still able to bowl 17 overs in, probably hotter weather than he's normally used to. The fact that he's throwing himself around in the field, fielding within the ring and pulling off full length dives and stops. It's a fantastic testament to how much he looks after himself, and he looks so good today as well. Like going at an economy of under 2 runs and over, it's that control that England really missed in the first test, especially in India's first innings. I think when JAISWAL came out in the first test and was just smashing Tom Hartley and Mark Wood all over the place, it really put England on the back foot there. But actually, when it was, a couple of hours after lunch, or no, it was about an hour after lunch. They were about 140 something for 3 or 140 something for 2. England just seemed in a far more controlled state than at the same time after the same number of overs in the first test. And I think a lot of that was down to the control that Anderson had. I think at that point, Joe Root had bowled quite controlled too. And I think it was his second spell that really got punished. But yeah, Anderson, I mean, what a performer. I think he deserves to be, and he is the greatest fast bowler to have ever played, just by his longevity and the amount of wickets that he's taken. And yeah, it will be a sad day when he finally retires, but we've still got him for now. So sucks to be anyone that's not England.
I like that. It was interesting to see him almost perform the role of a spinner in English conditions, in that he was basically just holding up an end.
Yeah.
While the spinners rotated through a little bit, and
let's not forget he got out Shupman Gill.
Yeah, and he looked threatening as well. I'd say he probably looked the most like getting JAISWAL out as well. He beat the edge the most times. So it'll be interesting to see how they go at the start of tomorrow. How, Jimmy Anderson might be able to put a bit of reverse swing if needed. It's going to be really interesting.
What it does do, though, is it puts a bit of fear in me for how well Bumrah and Mukesh Kumar are going to perform. Because if Anderson's bowling this well and he's getting a little bit out of the pitch, he's getting a bit of swing in the air, but there's a little bit out, and he's managed to get a little bit of a deviation. Look at the Shupman Gill wicket. Bumrah and Mukesh Kumar could potentially do some damage to England.
Yeah, and so Bumrah, I'm especially scared of, because we saw in the last match that Bumrah can make a wicket sing. That, I think, the one last point I want to touch on before we finish is Mukesh Kumar, his inclusion over Mohammad Siraj, because I don't know, I'm quite surprised by it. I don't think. I mean, Mukesh Kumar he's relatively slow. I think he's a maybe medium fast at a push bowler.
Right on medium, I think. Right on medium, yeah.
Yeah, he's very inexperienced in the ways of test matches, and he's very much a swing bowler from what I've seen. So I'm interested to see how he'll do and why they've included him. I just throw out a theory. Why do you think he was included over Mohammad Siraj?
Siraj didn't get used. So they wanted to see who they'd actually use, maybe. I don't know. Maybe Siraj had a bit of a niggle that we haven't heard about. That's why he bowled so little. Potentially.
These are good theories.
Wild theory. But
yeah, I'm going to
realistically, I have no idea. If we see another example of Mukesh Kumar bowling 7 overs in 1 innings, then I'm going to be as confused as the next person.
Yeah.
Because it's strange to say the least.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Let us know in the comments if you know why Mohammad Siraj has been dropped. Also, let us know who you think is on top, and also anything else. Ask us any questions. We love the conversation in the comments. Thank you so much for all the support on the channel that we've been getting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are, as always, covering the test series in its entirety, putting out as many podcasts as we possibly can. So yeah, like and subscribe. All the links in the link tree down below are worth clicking on, because there's like the audio versions of these podcasts. There's our social medias, which you should follow. You can also become a Cricket Nerds member, which is the best way to support the channel. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.